This continues today.
If you take into account that there have been perhaps 2 million mine workers who've passed through the mines just in the last 10 years, and over the last 100 or so, many, many millions, and if 20 or 30% of all those contracted these diseases, a great many people have died in southern Africa.
Cough, cough, cough. Cough.
I think that what's being done around dust is appalling. There is no research. The statistics are hidden. There is very little work being done on reducing dust in the workplace. And I say this on the basis of practical exposure to the mining industry and a long involvement in health and safety on the mines. Dust is ignored, it's neglected. It doesn't kill people like a rockfall does. It's an insidious, slow killer. It's killing people far away. It's killing them quietly. Their clockwork's running down, their batteries are drying up, and they're dying. It's not getting the attention it deserves.
Why?
Because the people who are dying are so far away. The people who are dying are out in the country. The people who are dying aren't important people.
They're not important people?
Not in the South African context.
What do you mean?
They're rural people. They're poor people. They're people without a voice. They're people who are inarticulate. They're people on the fringes. They're working class people. In neighboring countries, in our most remote rural areas, these are the people who have no voice, they have no say, they have no influence. They simply die quietly.
What has changed under democracy?
Well, references to race and unequal treatment in terms of the amount of compensation people are entitled to, those have been removed from the Act. But the bottom line is the same. Is black mine workers are getting sick on the mines and they're going home, they're being left untreated, impoverished, and they're dying. Nothing has changed at all.
Some of the research that is recently being done in this country suggests that 1/3 of all miners are suffering some form of quite serious disease as a result of their occupational disease. But they come away with very little. That's the point.
Certainly levels of compensation have changed and are changing further.
How are they changing?
The amounts have been increased.
By what? What? Can you give me an example?
I'd have to give you a rough estimate, but certainly compared to the 1970s, they're in multiples of the levels then.
Can't you give me an example of a miner over a period of time? I mean, you know, this is your field, really, and what he would have got and what he now gets.
I don't have the figures, John, no. I regret that.
Don't you find that extraordinary? For the public affairs manager of this company, I asked you about a simple question, to give an example of the compensation. Now, this is about to do with mining, and you don't have the information.
I don't find that extraordinary at all.
Okay. Before the electronic revolution, this was the trading floor of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. What has not changed is the fact that just 5 huge companies control almost 3/4 of all listed shares here. Known as the Royal Balcony, they represent one of the greatest concentrations of corporate wealth and power on earth. A power that underwrote apartheid in a manner reminiscent of the great German companies that ran the economy of the Third Reich. They're dominated by the Anglo-American Corporation, whose interests reach into every corner of South African life, from minerals to tourism, property to retailing. What's good for Anglo-American, it's often said here, is good for South Africa. In 1960, the South African police murdered 69 peaceful demonstrators at the town of Sharpeville. This atrocity was a clear sign to Western business that the population was being disciplined and opposition crushed. Foreign capital poured in most of it from Britain. Indeed, Britain was the biggest single investor in South Africa, followed by the Americans, who saw their capital return higher profits than anywhere else in the world. The ANC's most important historic compromise was to reinforce the economic power of these pillars of apartheid. The ideals of the Freedom Charter were replaced by a policy favouring big business and the free market. Apartheid's chief economic manager, Chris Stiles, governor of the Reserve Bank under the old regime, kept his job. The former economic system, he said, had served the country well. Under democracy, foreign investment has tripled, profits have risen, and jobs have disappeared at the rate of 100,000 a year. Those multinational companies that continued doing business with the apartheid regime, Coca-Cola, Siemens, BMW, Shell, and Mercedes-Benz, are prospering. We are seeking to establish, said Trevor Manuel, the finance minister, an environment in which winners flourish.
You must remember that the best way to introduce transformation is to do so without a dislocation any aspect of our public life. And we do not want to challenge big business in a way where they can take fright and take away their monies. We are changing the whole economic aspect of this country, but it has to be done skillfully by discussions with stakeholders, and where we're unable to agree, to push on.
Do you reflect that the Freedom Charter, and paraphrasing, did say or did aspire to the people of this country really owning its wealth? Is that something that's still possible?
Why not? They are already beginning to share in that wealth. The affirmative action as far as business is concerned, you are having now blacks, Africans, coloreds, and Indians involved in companies which command billions of assets, something totally new in this history of this country. That is taking a share in the wealth of that country.
Since the ANC came to power, inequality among blacks has risen as the class gap has opened up. People power is being taken over by a black elite, an extension of the black middle class created by the apartheid regime as a buffer to real change. This is Cyril Ramaphosa, former head of the Miners' Union, and today a member of the ANC's national executive and a millionaire businessman, seen here with mining magnate Nicky Oppenheimer. It was Ramaphosa who negotiated the ANC's historic compromises. By using black faces in the boardroom, the old power structure has gained access to the new political establishment. In terms of South Africa's policies towards the rest of the world, I read that in Bangkok this year you said we are willing to deal with any region irrespective of the internal policies of any country. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, certainly.
What would have happened to South Africa, though, if that had been applied to the ANC during the struggle? If that attitude of tolerance had been applied, surely apartheid might have lasted longer than it did.
There's a real fundamental difference with apartheid. There is no country anywhere in the world where